this season, for whatever reason, just the biggest names and in the NBA and the basketball at large, as well as like some Vanity Fair profile writers, some anybody you ask, I feel like it's been a talking point that Anthony Edwards reminds everyone about 1988-89 Michael Jordan, which is a wild thing to fathom at this point. Interesting for me because when I see Anthony Edwards, I just see Anthony Edwards. I don't see anyone else. But it's been weird that this has become a talking point, and not only from the NBA at large, but guys that played with Michael Jordan, like Kevin Garnett is saying that he looks like 88 Jordan. This is the guy that can bring and I see the similarities, the marketing power, can jump out of the gym, all of those things. But I don't see necessarily like the Mike comparison. We've had a history of these, Howard, ever since Michael was, I'd say, in the mid 90s when we saw that Michael Jordan was towards the end of his career. We're trying to find new people. Now we've gotten like a revamp of that with one guy. What is your take on all of these different like things and how we've gotten from, okay, Jerry Stackhouse is not Michael Jordan. Ron Harper's not Michael Jordan. Kobe's not clearly going to be Michael Jordan. I thought it died when Kobe retired, and now it's kind of coming back into the fold, Howard.
So that's the thing. Like I come to this and thought about doing this piece in part because of personal experience. Two things, right? Obviously, I covered Kobe Bryant from 97 to 2004. So I was there during the period when Kobe was alternately like either embracing the comparisons and emulating Jordan outright, and also pushing it away and saying, please stop doing this. Don't I'm just me. Like, we don't need it. So it bothered him at the time. So I lived through the Kobe as Jordan thing. Obviously, I was around during the Vince Carter years. Was Vince going to be next Jordan? And Jerry Stackhouse, as you mentioned, on and on and on. Like high school players, people in other sports were being called this. And in the mid 2010s, I was working at Bleacher Report, and I realized one day it felt like it had all kind of stopped. So my two entry points for this whole discussion are having covered Kobe and having written a story in 2017 in which I said that this thing was finally dead. We were no longer doing next Michael things. There was no longer his Air Jordan, H-E-I-R Jordan, next Jordan. Who's going to replace him? Who's going to be him? Who looks like him? Who plays like him? Who dunks like him? Who markets like him? Who smiles like him? Who wags their tongue like him? We did this for so long, and it had finally stopped. So yes, I have a personal investment in that. I declared this thing dead in a story for Bleacher Report in 2017, and you all brought it back. So I'm taking it a little personally. Did you not read my story, people? No, I mean, I really thought it had died out, Logan. I really thought we had moved past this because, one, I think people finally realized, like, this is impossible. There is no next. I think Sam Smith, the great Sam Smith, formerly of the Chicago Tribune, even wrote a book called There Is No Next, because it's an impossible aspiration. And then the other piece is like, we had LeBron going to the finals 8 straight years, and he doesn't have to be Jordan, but we had a standard bearer, and we had Steph, and he's a standard bearer. We had Kevin Durant. We had all these other stars, and maybe people finally realized we don't need to keep figuring out who the next Jordan is. We could just enjoy the guys we've got, and also there can't be another Jordan. It's impossible. So I truly thought it was dead until especially this last year. In fairness, there have been people on Twitter, NBA Twitter, who've been kicking around Anthony Edwards as Michael Jordan for a few years now. But it really gained steam this season because he's taken leaps. The Timberwolves have taken leaps. And you've got Kevin Garnett and Kendrick Perkins and various others, Patrick Beverley, all talking about Anthony Edwards as Michael. And I thought, oh man, all right, this has picked up a lot of steam. I think it's time to kind of like recenter the discussion. So that's the piece I wrote on The Ringer today is basically just saying we don't need to do this again. We shouldn't do this again. It's not fair to these guys. It's not fair to Anthony Edwards. It wasn't fair to Jerry Stackhouse and Kobe and Penny Hardaway and Harold Miner and on and on and on. I've got a whole list that I had compiled 7 years ago of all the people who were ever labeled next. And it's crazy. Vince Carter freaking hated this discussion. And we talked about it for the story I did 7 years ago. So Logan, I don't know why we're here again. And I love watching Anthony Edwards, but he's not Michael. And it's fine that he's not Michael. Nobody has to be Michael, and nobody should have that put on him because it's an impossible standard.
Well, no, it's interesting because why we do this as a society, trying to find the next. And because Kobe's a great example of this, and I'm not saying that he shied away from it, just in the way that Anthony Edwards hasn't shied away from it, right? Like he told friend of the show, Malika Andrews, like, why would I deny that? Like, why would I, let me get the correct quote. How would I look denying it? But I don't want to be compared to somebody of such caliber. I mean, I haven't done anything on this level yet, but I love it. I love that they got faith in me for sure. I mean, they not wrong. Right. So like he's kind of like teasing like, oh, I'm not Michael Jordan, but I like the fact that you guys keep telling me I can be Michael Jordan. Yeah. Right. Like he's kind of just in the middle on that way. But it's interesting case study because we do this with the next generation of stars. Like we don't let them be them. And I want to get back to where Kobe's the best case study, not to say because like Anthony Edwards, he didn't shy away from the comparisons of Jordan. In fact, he welcomed it with the demeanor, with the literal game, the side-by-side comparisons and all of these things. But one of those things was it felt like towards the backstretch of his career, he finally graduated into being Kobe Bryant, right? And I feel like that's what we've been doing with these younger generations, right? They kind of have to graduate into being their own selves, or either graduate or drop out into being their own self, right? Because I think early, even maybe 10 years ago, there was the influx of maybe the next LeBron, right? Ben Simmons is the poster child of that. And it felt like Ben Simmons had to figure out how to be Ben Simmons, but for a stretch it was like, is he the next LeBron? He's 6'8". He can dribble. He could play multiple positions and guard multiple positions. Could he be that? Or the next Steph and Trae Young? Oh, he could shoot from 35 feet. Is he the next guy? I don't get why we end up doing this because, and if I had to guess, it would be, Michael Jordan put this huge imprint on the league. And let's be real, there's a lot of money at stake when Michael Jordan leaves the game, when there isn't enough, there isn't a face of the league like that. I mean, you could even see ratings when Michael Jordan retired, right? Like you have the highest viewed finals of all time, and then you go into a lockout. There's extenuating circumstances, but the ratings dip. You want to make sure that you have ratings for the shows. But I think we would be better served marketing these players as they are, as opposed to saying they are the next such and such.
And the thing is, Logan, like you're right. We said like when Ben Simmons came in, oh, he's tall and he's a tall point guard like LeBron, which is just like when LeBron came in, we compared him to Magic quite a bit. But comparing a guy, which is something that we just do in sports, right? Who's this guy? He's new. A lot of us haven't seen him yet. So who does he remind you of? Oh, he's a little like this guy. Like, that's fine. We've compared some guys to LeBron, and you're right. We compared Trae Young to Steph, but we didn't put on Trae Young, you must be the next Steph. And every time you fall short, we're going to point it out. Or Ben Simmons, you must be LeBron. Ben Simmons has had all kinds of other stuff to deal with in the course of his career, but he's never had to live up to being the next LeBron in the way that all the guys we mentioned earlier had to live up to next MJ stuff. It's unique to Michael Jordan. It's unique to the NBA. Like even in other sports, again, like people might say, oh, this guy reminds me a little bit of like Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or something. Eventually maybe somebody will say that, or they might say, but no one's ever had the pressure of being like the next Wayne Gretzky. Like we don't do this to athletes in other sports the way we do it in the NBA. It's unique to the NBA.
I will say this real quick. We also are doing this with Wemby too, right? Like if you talk about like in terms of marketing, we haven't seen anything like this since LeBron. And I get why they do it because like there has to be a basis of comparison, right? There has to, again, marketing the game. Hey, you seen this guy we've never seen before? Let's trot him out and put a name on him in that way.
Yeah, no, we put the pressure on him for sure. Like the amount of hype going into the Wembanyama machine heading into the draft was just off the charts. And I think that stuff's unfair too. But at least it's not, here comes this kid, Victor Wembanyama. He's the best prospect since LeBron. And by the way, he's going to be the best player since Michael Jordan, or he's going to be better than Wilt Chamberlain, or whatever it is. Like it stopped short of that. And I think it's one thing to live up to the hype of people saying you're immensely talented, you could be a transcendent player, you could be a multiple-time MVP. Those things are all pressure too. But literally saying this guy is the new Michael Jordan, that is a whole other level of pressure, of unfair expectations. It's just unrealistic.